Welcome back on the AM show, and we get into some pertinent matters of discussion as far as Parliament and our national life is concerned. We'll be talking about the seeming reshuffle that has taken place from the president. Reshuffle no abana. And we'll also talk about the domestic debt exchange program, everything about it, and also get into other pertinent matters of national scope. Joining us for the conversation, we have Member of Parliament for Anyaso, Dr. Dixon Adumaku-Kisi. We also have joining the conversation the Member of Parliament for South Dai in the person of Roxanne Nelson Dafiamepo. Gentlemen, a very good morning to you.
Thank you.
Morning. You're all looking very spick and span, dapper this morning, blue on blue, some navy blue on. What's your secret? And I hear my director saying, and you're black on black. The black on black is because my power went out. But I suppose I'm not rocking it back.
He got you there.
He caught me there. He caught me there. Anyway, good to have you gentlemen in the house. Let's make tracks. So I always like to find out, before we get into the substantive matters, how your constituencies are doing. For you, Dr. Adumaku-Kisi, while I was coming in, a colleague of mine, I will not mention his name, saw me and said, Ben, when you go, tell him that in his constituency, the roads are not so good, especially one big called Antieku. You know that road? I don't.
I live in Antieku, so literally it's where I wake up, and I'm very much aware. And in fact, let me just add that for me, I've always been pushing hard. One thing that worries us is drains and then roads, because we have some flood-prone areas as well. And I'm hoping that one day we'll have a Gangantuan loan arrangement, just as now Pokwase has, which is solving a very major problem that they've had for a long time.
Right.
So our issues are not just normal roads and highway issue. We really have some big drains that need to be addressed in my constituency. So I'm with him, but we're hoping, per the pushes of the road minister, that Antieku Road, there are about 4 critical roads that I'm hoping that road ministry would at least give us favor and address for us, and that is one of them.
So I just have to highlight that members of parliament, by the way, are not in charge of constructing roads and all of that. Sometimes they slip into their promises, but that's technically not their role to play. So what you usually do is lobby so that your constituency gets those things. How much lobbying have you done in respect of the roads in your constituency? Just very quickly, I don't want this to
one key thing, I brought the entire road ministry to my constituency 2 years ago to hold a symposium and an interaction with the homeowners and the associations we have and the assembly as a whole, to tell us in terms of our current situation, and then also to let us know which contracts are out and things like that. So that was a very interactive thing. The Deputy Road Minister, Honorable Jalula, was there to address them in terms of needs. And then fortunately, just last year I was able to bring Road Minister himself, which was a very tough one to do. He came with his whole entourage, and I was really touched by it.
But I'm sure your constituents and most people watching would say, what did that yield?
One thing I can
tangible
say, there are 2 roads which contracts are being cancelled. And it's not easy for government to cancel contracts. The Antieku Road you mentioned, and then the Agape Road, Road Minister, through that visitation, has started the process of changing contractor. And that is a huge thing, because he realized that the resources of the 4-bar contractors were not up to task. So that is a plus, and I'm sure that with the new contractors in the next foreseeable days, we'll see something. And in fact, the Antieku Road is being worked on also from the Anya, enclave, where the so you might, if he's gone through the other stretch, you'd realize that the drains from Anya to Antieku or the municipal are being done. So there's some work. It's just that the pace might not be as he would want. but it's been done. And then there's one major drain that has to be fixed before the Anteku Road is fully addressed. And that one has to be done through Works and Housing. And Works and Housing's budget is quite major at the moment. So the Honourable Minister, Asenso Boachi, is also working on that. And I'm always, as it is, bugging him, let me put it that way, to a large extent, so that he can give us consideration. But you know, he's given me his word that once he gets, you know, some funding, we will be one of the priorities. As
a Member of Parliament for Bantama?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
But thank you for those initial comments. Let me also be fair to you. South Dai, how
he has some nice roads.
And very quickly on what you can say about
the one took like 10 minutes to.
No, it didn't. He actually took 4 minutes.
Okay.
I'm keeping time.
I just returned from the constituency. If you recall, about 4 years ago, we had to stage a very major demonstration in Kweve for purposes of the recommencement work on the Eastern Corridor. Luckily, that has started last year, for the last 2 years. Work is progressing. The difficulty is that I'm informed by the contractor that there's some delay in payments for work done so far. So I'm praying the government to make payments to him so that he can finish that major road work. My other concerns are my feeder roads. They're in such a terrible state. Tudome to Germany, 23 kilometers. I just graded it. Not too good, but manageable with the dust. Through Enumbuso to, again, Germany to Parliament. Also under construction, but it's been abandoned because of non-payment to the contractor. So it makes traveling to my constituency using that route very bad. Some town roads in Peki are also in a terrible shape. We are not even able to do reshaping. That's how bad the situation is. Those days, reshaping were done regularly to leave the roads in a more travelable state. Sanga to Anyinsu, these days, if you want to hire machines, so expensive.
Even fuel it.
Yeah, so it's the whole of Kweve. Kweve has a lot of roads that has to be re-engineered, for instance. Some to be graded from Kweve town to Kweve tunnel, where the pumping station is, the Ghana water pumping station is. It's also in a deplorable state. Last, I asked one of the engineers why Ghana Water itself cannot even assist in grading that road, since that is where they pump their water from. So I still have a lot of roads to be done.
But are there any? Sometimes we focus on the negatives. Are there any positives? Are there some roads that
I began speaking on the positive. The fact that the Eastern Corridor, the contractor is on site working, just that he needs to be paid so that he can continue working. I started with the positives. But the negatives are,
is that the only
even if those cannot be tarred, I'm saying that we should reshape them. And I'm begging, I'll borrow his word. I'm on the neck of the road minister to have that done. So he's referring.
Have you been fortunate for him to visit your constituency like he
has? Yes, he visited. In fact,
the president actually visited his constituency. He has to make that known. The president
he visited my
see the road.
And that he saw massive. The road, he saw the agenda 111. I'm grateful to him. The minister also came, actually with the deputy. We spent 2022 Christmas visiting the project sites.
Fantastic.
Yes, so I pray that the work doesn't stall. But my concern is with the feeders. And I think that if we do reshaping, for instance, Jacquet to Anum, it's just 5 kilometers. If we are able to do some reshaping, the people would let go with that. Yes,
right. So let's get into the substantive matters this morning. We'll be talking about the latest reshuffle. We've been calling for it.
Is that a reshuffle?
I interacted this morning.
Some shuffling.
Whichever way. So there are 4 new nominees. 2 have been elevated and 1 has been reshuffled.
It's only 1 person has been shuffled.
Interacting this morning with political scientist Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante, he said that even if it were one person who was replacing a minister, or like we've seen 3 ministers out and new ones, it's still a reshuffle, whichever way you look at it. So technically it is, but in terms of a major overhaul, that is what we can discuss. So we now know that Katie Hammond is the Minister Designate Trade and Industry, replacing Alan Chabating. We know Brian Echampong is headed for the Food and Agriculture Ministry, replacing Dr. Efria Koto. We know Stephen Asamoah Boateng is the Minister Designate for Chieftaincy and Religious Affairs after what happened to Honorable Kum, and on health reasons he wants to rest. We know Mohammed Amin Adam, Dr. Amin Adam is now Minister of State Designate at the Finance Ministry, and some have said, well, this probably could be the replacement strategy of the MPP, so that, because now he's more like number 2 in the sequence, right behind Ken Oforiatta. Is that the plan? No one knows. But I'll start with you, Dr. Adomaku Kisi. People had called for a reshuffle. Does this, for you, qualify in that sense? And again, looking at the names and faces that have popped up, what do you make of it? Well,
we usually say in our local parlance, Ijebo, Ijebo, Ijebo. I think once...
Ejanyaba.
Yes. I mean, once Honorable Alan Chamanting put his cap down to pursue presidential ambitions, and then also our great minister did, it was very clear to Ghanaians that those positions had to be refilled, let me put it that way. And the key question was the president going to use that as an opportunity to do some, as it is, dancing around, or waltz or whatever dance you'd call that. And then also, it gave us the opportunity to question performance of the various ministers that we've had so far. And I think that the timing, considering how President took his time to wait until Parliament was in session, is just apt, so as to not delay governmental business. Some of the names that are fascinating for me, quite frankly, for me, I mean, Brian Echampong and the Great Ministry, fantastic. I mean, he is one that literally...
I don't think he's had a ministerial portfolio before.
He has. Deputy at some point.
No, I mean ministerial portfolio.
Not ministerial.
Yes.
Deputy ministerial.
No,
ministerial. Minister of State.
No, hold on.
Yeah,
he was the Minister of State.
Yes.
And the Minister of Interior.
Interior, yes. That's right.
Then he was also a minister in charge of national security at the presidency.
Yes.
Minister of, so both times Minister of State.
Yes.
I think that's where that's
national security and interior.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
So now he's a substantive.
So he's making a return, but this time nominated for
something quite massive. So I'm very much excited about that. And then I think one that took me by surprise, I must say, was Dan Boche's change.
Okay.
I mean, I wasn't expecting that at all. So
Boche?
Well, the local government changed.
It wasn't changed.
We've now added...
So a deputy minister of local government decentralization and rural development, an MP for Ekwapim.
But he was a deputy.
Osei Bonsu Amwa has been elevated as a minister of state at the same ministry, while a deputy minister of trade.
So literally the two of them will be at the table,
yes.
which is still some very interesting change for me.
But it's happening at finance.
Well,
when you say finance, which one are you referring to?
Minister of State in charge of Ministry of
Finance. But that position...
Okay, so you're referring to Dr. Amin Adam.
Yes.
We're taking over from
Yes, and when Ambrose Derry was Minister for Interior during the first term, Brian was Minister of State at the Ministry of Interior. So as for that, you are
okay. If you say that the party or the government is used to that, I think Obi Amoah's elevation was a surprise for me. I didn't know
Obi
it was coming.
Obi. Okay.
I didn't see that coming.
It's not
I mean, he's saying that he didn't see it coming. Allow him to make. He didn't see it coming.
I must admit
Proceed.
And that is fantastic. So literally, these are minor adjustments of some sort. Sticker, who we have as Dr. Very interesting dynamic there. Him going to trade, fascinating. He's another, powerful guy, and I think he'll add much to trade in the future. So these are very good people who will do very well for Ghana, and I'm excited to see how the nomination and, as it is, appointment committee pans out. But something
you're not talking about your friend Sticker. So it had been in the news. It had been in the news that he was going to be, with the speculations that he was going to be the Minister of State, or yes, at the Finance Ministry. And it rather turned out to be a deputy at the Trades Ministry with KT Hammond as his boss. Any reactions?
Well, I think we thought so, but I think somewhere in December, word was out, that had changed. So it's something that we knew had changed.
Word that you didn't share with us.
Well, some of us are a bit close. And in fact, he knew the change had come, and he had some discussions with some of us. So we knew prior to the list coming out that a change had happened in terms of him going to finance. And he's received it very well. I'm very happy that he's very excited about the fact that he's going into a new role, and as it is, as you can see, many have performed in various categories, and you could be at trade today, tomorrow you might be at finance. So it's not necessarily, and I think Brian Champon is an example. He's been at 2 different places, and now he's at Agric. Nobody would have thought him to even be going to Agric, but here it is that the president, by his own, and that reminds me, for instance, the regional minister for Greater Accra, when he was given the opportunity to do this regional ministerial job, it took a lot of us by surprise. But look at how he's performed. Fantastic. To the extent that I think even the president finds it difficult to move him from that position, because he's, excelled at it so
I think the
well.
way he started, a lot of people,
Yes.
He won a lot of hearts.
Absolutely.
Moving on, there have been some constraints, but comparatively,
over,
you would say that
yes.
he has fared pretty
Yes.
well.
And I take my hats off for him every day.
Right before I come to the Member of Parliament for South Dai, Honorable Roxanne Dafiamepo, I'd like to find out from you, looking at the state of our economy and looking at the replacement for Charles Edubuahin, Dr. Amin Adam, what are your reflections on him? People have started looking at his background and all of that. Questions have come up here and there. What is your thinking about Dr. Amin Adam?
Well, he has a wealth of experience. That is one thing. And I also think that per his experience and his position as a Member of Parliament, as he's come to appreciate the intricacies of government. And I think Parliament has been powerful in the sense that we, the first-timers, even if we knew more, per our interaction with our constituents, per our interaction with the people of Ghana, we are very much in touch. And I think that he'll add that element to Finance Ministry in terms of somebody who's very much in touch with the Ghanaian people, so that, as it is, Finance Ministry will not necessarily be out of touch with Ghanaians. I think Abena Osai is also fantastic, and they'll complement each
the
other.
deputy at the Finance
Absolutely, they'll complement each other. And this time round, as it is, I think that Doc will bring his wealth of knowledge now from Parliament into Finance Ministry as an addition. And also, a key thing is his background in energy. And that really, I think, will also be a plus. In Japan, the Finance Minister is also the Health Minister. And that 2 cups helps really in terms of their health infrastructure and health development. So I think that Doc, per his pedigree and him also being a Member of Parliament and his in touchness with Ghanaians, because the interesting thing about parliamentary work is that there are no highs and lows in terms of the people you interact with.
Right.
You are obliged by all means to deal with carpenters, deal with barbering shops, deal with all manner of people,
right?
You know, and the top brass. So I think that it'll help finance ministry in terms of put them in check, in being very realistic in their.
Let me bring in Roxanne on this matter. So finally, 4 new nominees, 2 have been elevated, 1 has been reshuffled, and my own friend Herbert Crapper is now the Deputy Energy Minister designate. What are your reflections on this? You were saying, in fact, you started by saying this is no reshuffle. Are you sticking to that?
This is no reshuffle.
It's not?
No, at all. This is mainly a replacement of ministers who have left the government for one reason or the other. K.T. Hammond, let me begin with K.T. Hammond. K.T. Hammond has been brought in as trade. We've always known K.T. for some law and some work in energy. And
in fact, he's known very much in the energy.
Yeah, because he served as a deputy minister under President Akufo. That's how come some energy experience being ascribed to him. But I know him for his work in law. So bringing him to trade, I don't serve on the trade committee, but I work closely with them. I'm always attending their meetings as a friend. There are a lot of difficulties in that area regarding the works of the agencies and the trade. So I hope that he brings some reform. And he's to be assisted by our own sticker. You saw yesterday how we hailed that from the opposition. The opposition, we hailed that.
In fact, Mr. Speaker said the way you guys hailed them,
the way we hailed sticker, it was only sticker that we hailed. Because we thought
what is it with sticker though? I mean,
guy with his Chinese moves. You know, he has these Chinese moves.
Sticker comes across as somebody who does his work with some form of comic, you know. And so he has, you know, he and I had an altercation some time ago. And we've always been saying that he ought to be rewarded for the kind of things he does for the government. So yesterday, when he was mentioned, you recall somebody said from our side that that even though it's a deputy portfolio, it should take it like that. But I hope that you also assist KT so that they can look in this country. One sector that can help the economy regain its strength and be revamped is the trade sector. If we handle trade well, we'll do well. And so I hope that they can do well with trade and bring reforms.
A quick one before you go on. Yeah. Both of them are firebrands. Both of them tend to, you know, be very passionate. Sometimes
that's my next point.
Even go.
That's my next.
I don't want to say overboard, but you see how they. You remember I will not forget the coconut head comments of Katie Hammond and the rest. You know, out of passion, sometimes. Pairing the two of them together, how do you think they're going to work?
That's
together?
my next point. I see that they all have explosive temperaments, and so I hope that they can work well together.
Contain each other.
Yes. And complement each other. Then, of course, Brian has operated in the security sector, first as the Minister of State at the Office of the President in charge of national security. Then, I think 2 years later, he was moved to Interior. As the substantive Minister of State in charge of the Ministry of Interior. Then the elections came. Then now he's been posted to Agric. We have a lot of issues with the agric sector as well. The planting for food and jobs and all those programs have been run aground. So I hope that he can bring some life back to those programs. Obi Amwa has been elevated. Obi served as a deputy minister, I think, from about 2005 till about when they left government in 2009. And then when they returned in 2017, he was again made the deputy at the same ministry. So some of us call him senior deputy minister. That's how, that's the cliche that we have for him. So I'm happy that he's been elevated. But I'm shocked that he's to serve at the same ministry with another iconic minister with Dambuchwe. I don't know.
Why is there a problem there?
And interestingly, no deputy has been appointed. You know, I was hoping that...
So we have a substantive
There's one
minister.
deputy.
We have a substantive minister.
Martin J.
Okay, AJ, yes. So that there were two. Obi has
Exactly.
been elevated. So
Exactly.
AJ Kosa.
But he is a minister of state at that.
Yes.
ministry.
So I am wondering what kind of schedules he will have. But hey, I'm not the president.
I'm supposing when the parliamentary committee sits with these people, we'll get to, I'm supposing some of these questions will crop up and some of these concerns will be addressed.
But
there are certain things that are sitting from here.
You see, but I mentioned that the government is fond of replicating this model. I just mentioned Brand and Office of the President in charge of National Security when we had Kandapa as minister, substantive minister for national security.
Right.
Okay. Then he was sent to Interior with Ambrose Derry as substantive minister, sector minister. Then he was sent there as Minister of State in charge of in charge of Interior, as Minister of Interior. Then we had a case of Edubwine, who was made a Minister of State at the Ministry of Finance. You understand? In addition to the substantive minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, you know, and now it's been replicated at the local government. So I don't know what really that model is, but I'm happy Asabi is coming back into government and moving straight to chieftaincy.
You know what comes to mind? The last elections that were held and some of his comments about, you know, the elections. I mean, I'm talking about your national...
The internal elections.
Yes.
He went for chairmanship.
Went for the chairmanship. And I recall he made some comments about vote buying and all.
Oh, I want to...
And in this instance, he is getting...
I want to gloss
within
over that and focus on... I'm very sad about my friend, Kwejo.
Right.
Kwejo and I are very close as lawyers and even in parliament. We work closely together on the Constitutional Legal Parliamentary Affairs Committee. I think we're also on judiciary. We also took interest in subsidiary legislation. So, but then the domestic accident has affected him. And yesterday, I didn't know. So when the announcement came, I spoke to him. I felt it, you know. He was such talented guy. He was doing well.
But I believe on the grounds of health, it does make perfect sense to allow him to rest.
I agree. But I'm saying that, but for the domestic accident, he was actually doing good work at the chieftaincy ministry.
It's a loss, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, I think it's because the verve and vim with which he was doing things with the chieftaincy issues across the country before his accident, which has affected him, for him to leave. So I hope Asabi will build on what Kojo had started. Then Herbert Krapper, that for me is the only reshuffle. So he's been moved from trade to energy to replace Dr. Amin. Amin and I, we did student politics. He was my senior at Kebas. My senior about 3 years or so. He became our NUC's president. And so I've known him for over 20 years. Brilliant guy. He has a finance background, you know, and also
more of economics.
Yes. So
I pray. Certified economist in the
yes, I pray that he will do well and deal with bad economic issues.
Tough.
Not
Tough.
bad, very bad.
Tough
Run the country aground. But by and large, I don't see the transformation that.
So let me bring this in, since you've gone back to the tangent of reshuffle or no reshuffle.
Yeah.
I spoke to you about the comments of Dr. Kwame Asante this morning. Let's look at what Professor Jampo also had to say.
Okay.
He said that the supposed reshuffle, as he put it, of ministers did not reflect the purpose for embarking on such exercises, nor did it reflect the aspirations of the public who had continuously called on the president to reshuffle his ministers due to poor performance. That's the Daily Graphic. He also says, basically, this is not a reshuffle because the idea of a reshuffle is to sit and assess your appointees to know that some of the positions will require some qualities that the appointee appointees do not have. And so you move other persons with the needed qualities there.
Yes.
Do you briefly on
Yes,
that? Do you
in
agree
fact,
with him?
I agree with him because you see, this is about replacement. 4 ministers have left: Edubwai, Alan, Dr. Friye, and Kwejokum. Who else? Then you brought in 5. All right, you brought in 4 to replace them, and then you elevated 1, and so you added to the expenditure because OBM's conditions of service will have to be improved because he's now a substantive minister of state, you know, and coupled with the fact that Your Excellency has appointed about 38 judges within the past 3 months. 38 Superior Court judges.
Which will also be a bit of a drain on the public.
Yes, these are very heavy.
All of them come with Article 71 office holders,
heavy expenditure.
the perks and all
2
of that.
Supreme Court judges, 15 Court of Appeal judges, and 21 High Court judges within the past 3 months. 2 Supreme Court judges.
So that's actually
November.
37.
No, 38. 2 Supreme
So
Court
38
judges.
actually,
Yeah, 2 Supreme
So
Court
2
judges in
15 plus
November.
what?
15 Court of Appeal judges in December, in fact 22nd, and then last Monday, 21 High Court judges. So,
But I'm thinking about the fact that many cases will be streamlined and some things dealt with expeditiously.
But that's a fair point too that he makes. We've also spoken about the numbers and hastening. I listened to the Auditor General, I think recently, talking about facilitating the processes so that some of the cases we have can be dealt with. We had what was that system called under Akufo? Fast track court.
Yeah.
But still, it appears our legal system is rather lethargic. Don't you agree on that?
What leads to delays in cases are not really about the number of judges available.
Oh, no, I
No.
think it still has a complementary factor.
I'm a practitioner.
Sure.
The factors are not really because we don't have enough judges, not enough courts. All right. The factors that cause delays are trial related. They are trial related factors.
It's
For
one.
example, what? A lack of evidence coming up?
No.
State prosecutors sometimes refusing or failing to do the right thing. What are some
sometimes delay in concluding investigations. Okay, you could have a criminal matter at the High Court that will be traveling for like 2-3 years, and prosecution will still be telling you they have not concluded investigations. Okay, so what they brought to court is like an interim investigation, which establishes a prima facie case, so that they can initiate prosecution, but they will still be investigating. 2, sometimes parties change lawyers. Sometimes the judiciary itself changes judges midstream. Judges are transferred to different courts. And when it happens in respect of criminal cases, it has to be tried de novo. Because you change a judge.
Basically.
Yes,
Afresh.
because you change a judge. Sometimes in the course of trial, judges are summoned. I find that practice nauseating. In the course, look, a lawyer is on his feet, and the judge will simply announce that, counsel, you may have to end it here. I have just been summoned into a certain meeting.
That's why if there are more judges, at least.
No,
So it's a
you
factor.
see, we don't.
And then I think that more judges also, the pressures on the prosecution, which judges have a right to, per their office, to make demands in terms of, when they conclude.
Right.
These are things that once you have more
when
judges,
they conclude what?
investigations. I mean, the judge can also be, like, as it is, at least seeking answers.
Yes.
And he'll seek more
Why?
answers.
You'll be in this country, judges have been directing prosecution that if you don't bring your evidence or if you don't bring your witness,
We'll make
I'll
a
be
decision.
compelled
Yeah.
to let the accused persons go. It's happening.
Right.
So it is not about the
So for you, just to wrap on that point, was it superfluous to bring in all of these additional judges? Are you saying their roles are redundant?
No, I am making a point that we speak of austerity. We are crying that we are in difficult times. I serve on the Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee. We considered the budget of the judiciary.
Okay.
All right. No, the budget of the judicial came before the judicial committee. I sat in. I saw the report that they brought, and the anticipation of cases that they will do, for instance, this year and going forward. In respect of the Supreme Court, for instance, they expect to handle fewer cases, rather.
Okay.
I have
Well,
the data. If I provided the data.
The other thing too is that
which is actually a step in the right direction.
Yes. So I'm asking. I know that a couple of new courts have been established, which last year some high court judges have already been appointed to man those courts.
Yeah.
All right. So to appoint 21 high court judges,
even the quality of their arguments when the case is done matters to me. And I think that if one judge handles fewer cases, the depth and breadth of the discussion he'll give for judgment will be richer.
It's like a teacher with fewer students, right?
Absolutely. So the quality of our cases in terms of judicial judgments, which a lot of us also read. We read what the judges say or their summary, and that is very important. And I think that this will help them elevate in terms of the quality of their...
I disagree. I disagree because, you see, the quality of a judge is already the standard for which the person is appointed as a judge. That quality. I'm making a point.
I understand.
That you are not appointing a judge because you think that he hasn't got a quality to deliver quality judgment.
Right.
That is the standard.
No. I said the summary. I mean, if they'll go in depth, it depends on the number of cases.
But Roxanne, you cannot run away from the fact that if there is a lot more pressure, if they have more cases to deal with, even in scripting their judgments, I mean, there'll be some limitations. You have to hasten.
That goes to promotion. That goes to
understand that better because from the standpoint of Parliament,
that goes to assessment. That goes to assessment and promotion.
Right. I was going to cite the example of Osafo Mafo back then in the German deal and saying some of the fine print had not really been read and all. I mean, it even affects you as members of Parliament. You don't have enough time. So I think that's a reality. But let's quickly move on from that. I just want us to tackle this end of that conversation in some 2 minutes and move on. For you, you see that for some of them, like take trade, for example. People are saying KT Hammond is coming in with what? Less than 2 years left. Yeah. You have 1D, 1F, and all these, challenges to deal with that Alan has now left and he has to take up. How effective is he going to be? We've spoken about the numbers as well. Dr. Kasilato Forson, in that first interaction in Parliament with the media, said, we're not going to tolerate any additional ministers from the MPP. And if His Excellency the President proposes it, we're going to poo-poo that decision. Then we heard about pensions and, all of that. So with these numbers and even an add-on, if you like, what's your reflection? The time left and the numbers in Parliament. Other jurisdictions, Lazarus Chakwera has 30-something ministers. He's brought it down to 20-something. We have about 110. What's going on?
Well, you have a strong point there. I think what I've heard is that the reshuffle necessarily isn't necessarily done, and that there might be some additional changes. So you're saying here that from the grapevine, there could be more to look forward to. So we don't know, for instance, as it stands now, although we've upgraded OB, the deputy position is now vacant. And would that be necessarily not refilled? We don't know. And that depends on Mr. President. And literally, let me also posit this. This is very important. I'd beg Ghanaians to look carefully at the expenditure of government and to come to terms with the fact that it is not necessarily even these appointments, the ministers, that really account for the huge losses, if any. And that argument, anybody should check. If you look at the salary, even emolument changes, for instance, that would hit someone like Obi Amwa. It's not going to be much significant to the extent that we make so much noise about the wrong things. There are other things that we can chop off in this government, which is way much important and has more weight than appointing
other things like what? Very briefly. Maybe one or two.
I, for instance, and forgive me for saying this, I've always said that I would rather have a lot more resources put into just 16 of the Agenda 111 so that we complete it.
People have even said that, look, if you can complete 5 or 6, stock them up, ensure that they reach a certain caliber. There's so much pressure in the sub-region on Kolebu and the rest.
Thank you.
Why don't we focus on about 5 or 6 rather than 100?
So I'm with you. So that is one because that's about $1.5 billion project, and if we can concentrate, I am even saying 16 because there are 16 regions,
right?
And finish that.
10 of them already have regional hospitals. So
well, this is district, though, not really regional hospital.
Yeah, I get them, but it falls into that because 6 of them are supposed to now get regional hospitals.
Or if we can target, for instance, this Akufo-Addo regional hospital expansion and complete it massively within the shortest possible time, where we just put in all the resources needed to complete these, I'll be much happier. So I think that, and mind you, one of the 111 hospitals is far more expensive than an additional appointee.
Right.
And this is what I want Ghanaians to think
so that's the perspective you know
that always we seem to hone on to the employee thing, but mind you, what infrastructural things matter and we are costly, far more than just maybe moving from MP to deputy or deputy to minister.
And the add-ons. But let me come back to Roxton. So when you look at, I want us to make tracks because there are other matters to look at. The minority leadership in Parliament. I spoke to you on phone, I think, back then, and you shared your thoughts about the procedural challenges, but that by and large, this was nothing new. We had the interaction with Johnson Esidu Nketia, now party chairman, in London. He made his point, spoke about the different issues, the economy, energy, infrastructure, and the mindset behind the changes.
And the relationship with Mr. Speaker.
And the relationship with Mr. Speaker.
Very crucial.
It's crucial. It's crucial. It is important. Then we also had the NEC come in. Then we had the former president interact with some of them. The chief whip, for example, posted on social media about his interactions. Yesterday, the new leadership sat. In fact, for Dr. Kasilato Forsen, he had a court case. So the court had to grant him leave to come and perform those roles. And interestingly, even from your minority end, there wasn't too much of the here, until he started talking about the economy and jabbing a bit. What do you make of all that has happened? Is it water under the bridge now? Are there still undercurrents in terms of this change in leadership?
Yes, let me say that I wish to commend the leadership of Haruna Idrisu. He's trained me in Parliament very well. I work closely with him. It was unfortunate that the change occurred and affected him. A lot of
you say it's unfortunate that the change occurred and it affected
him. We're hoping that he may not be affected. But like you put it, it's water under the bridge now.
It is?
He's accepted. He's issued a statement. He's asked all his followers to calm down. We are throwing our support behind the leadership of Atu Forsen, Kofi-Boah, Kwame Agboja, and of course Ahmed Ndoyo.
Those who have been retained and those who have been added on, the 2 retentions
so
and the others.
There's calm. The storm is over. We will support Atu Forsen to deliver as leader of the House. Yesterday was the first day.
What did you make of his first showing as minority leader?
I think he did well. Atu is a member of the House, and he's always been.
It's not in dispute.
Yeah,
but he's been moved to a different.
I agree. So that's what I'm saying, that the environment is not new. Maybe moving to the podium to make a presentation is all maybe new. But as ranking for minority, he's always in the front bench, delivering salvos and all that. And yesterday, he didn't disappoint. Even what I would call his inaugural speech, he cautioned the government. Things that will tolerate and things will not tolerate. They mentioned some 15 billion not approved by Parliament, but that somehow has found its way into government. Government has factored that into its reckoning for expenditure purposes. He's really drawn attention to it. So I think he will bring a different style than that of Haruna. Haruna has a different, unique style. Atu's style will be different. But the essence
Some say
of
Atto is slow but sure.
Atto is not slow.
Is that a perspective you share?
No, Atto is not slow. Atto has his unique set skills. Differently.
Obviously, they are different gentlemen with different temperaments.
Different temperament, different specializations and all, and delivery styles. But Atto is sharp and is good. All right? So let's give him a week to settle, and then you see him.
Quick one. I just want to find out from you, with the new leadership, especially under Dr. Kasilato Forson, what is the NDC minority in Parliament? What are you looking forward to? Especially when your chairman has said, we're bringing Atto, especially on the economy, because it's going to be crucial.
Yeah.
We're bringing Honorable Bua on energy issues because that's going to be pivotal as well, infrastructure and others. What are your expectations from your leadership in Parliament?
Our expectation is for them to continue from where Haruna and his team left off, and perhaps put in a bit more energy in terms of the opposition work. To be able to stampede government and a lot of the frivolous policies.
Stampede government.
Yes, but why wouldn't we?
Government.
Yes, we have to stampede. Look, as we speak, yes, I'm being very honest. As we speak, government is going around holding negotiations with parties, pensioners, individual bondholders, banks, insurance companies, without recourse to Parliament. How is that? We don't even know the terms of this DDE arrangement. These are privately arranged contractual agreements between individuals and banks who are holding their bonds. And you want to tamper with it?
And that's a very next conversation.
Pursuant to Section 65 of the Public Financial Management Act and the Revenue Administration Act, any such arrangement amounts to borrowing. Somebody's money is with you. The time is due for you to release the money. You say you won't release it. You want to extend it. And you're asking the person to voluntarily agree. The person says, I won't. You are compelling the person to. So you are holding onto his money unlawfully. And you think that you don't have to come to Parliament for us to understand what is happening. So these policies, we cannot support the government to undertake such policies.
And since you've already started off on that trajectory, let me continue with you. The DDEP has come. You look at our domestic debt, you look at our external debt portfolio, which is pretty problematic. Some have said that, look, the domestic debt is not so much of a problem, but the external one. And now we are calling on the Paris Club and all of that to assist us. We heard Mr. President recently interacting with the Germans, saying basically encourage the Chinese to help us. But you look at where we've come. We are still unsure whether we've hit 80% in terms of the subscription, though some have said that we actually don't even need 80%. I spoke to Professor Aka of ISA yesterday. He says we don't need it. Others have said the same. But especially when you look at the pensioner bondholders, about 500 of them, who are insistent that we will not partake in this. We have paid our dues to this country. We have served. We've done everything. We use these for medication, rent, utilities, and all of that. You can't do this
and
to
upkeep of our children.
And they've been picketing at the ministry. I found something distasteful. First day they went, they were allowed in, interacted with the minister. Next day, there's a sort of blockade. They don't. I found these are elderly citizens. What is your quick take on that? Because they are holding out and saying, we will not do this.
My quick take is that this government is not sensitive to such plight. Listen, you have decided to include domestic bondholders in this debt renegotiations. You told Parliament in your budget that it's only the external debt holders, external creditors, who will be affected. That the domestic bondholders would not be affected. It was under this policy that we approved the budget. The evening of the 24th, the dawn that we approved the budget, we approved the budget on the dawn of the 24th of December. All right? Now, the evening of that day, you issue a statement very quietly and declare that domestic debt holders will be affected. And that was when everybody went gaga. So what are the terms? Parliament is not aware. You did say in the budget that in due course you come to Parliament to explain the terms of the policy. Meanwhile, you are told Parliament that it was only the external creditors who will be affected. So we're expecting that further explanation would have stated the terms under which you were engaging the external creditors, only for you to add domestic bondholders. So Parliament ought to know. It's such an urgent matter. That was why yesterday, when the business statement, for instance, was read and it was completely missing, the Honorable Kujatua Blackwell and myself and Honorable Ayarga raised the matter. As for Honorable Ayarga, he's written a long thesis, long legal thesis on that, and forwarded it to the Minister of Finance, and I think the Governor of the Bank of Ghana.
Right.
Stating the unconstitutional basis, raising some legal issues, and why the whole arrangement is unlawful. So these are not matters that we are taking lightly. We are saying that the domestic bondholders ought not to be affected. Because when you do that, you are going to cripple businesses. Sole proprietors, persons who have invested, can't have their money when it's due. They can't have their principal nor their interest.
Right.
How do you want them to survive? Individuals can't manage home. Not only pensioners, the people who are working, the middle class. We are paying school fees. You are aware that government has increased school fees by 15%. School fees have been increased. Persons can pay school fees and they are falling on MPs. Ask him. The number of messages he's getting in respect of school fees. How do you want people to survive? So that is why, as a minority, we are saying that we will not, and we've stated our policy, the party, the minority organ in Parliament, we've stated clearly that we are not in support of this, of the debt exchange program. We are not in support. They tell us that if we don't do that and we go to the IMF by March, the economy will collapse. The same person told us. The same person told us that if we don't pass the levy, the economy will collapse. We passed the levy for him. Did the economy collapse?
Point made. And actually, you did not pass it for him. Parliament as a house, but you walked out. But I'm
saying
Parliament as a house. Dr. Adoma Kukisi, so we have the Speaker inviting Ken Ofori-Atta. Coincidentally, the date on which he's supposed to show up is the same date when some finality is supposed to come to the DDEP. Your take on that quickly.
Well, in line with what my leadership has said to Finance Minister, that this debt restructuring or debt exchange program doesn't sit well with the populace. And we are still, as it is, I think, hoping that there's an alternative until the last minute. And we're really, on the majority side, really pushing that we get an alternative solution. And I think per the President's remarks to the German Finance Ministry when they met was in line with what we are anticipating, that we look at other opportunities to handle our bonds and, more importantly, strengthen government guarantees. You know, what is at stake here is not just the pension issues or people's medications. What is at stake here is your word being bond. And you know, the
word being your bond, your promise holding. Because now people are going to say what was risk-free is no longer risk-free. So what do we do now?
And that is my problem. You know, and when government tells you sit high, government ought to give you all the necessary parachutes to make sure that where it has told you to sit, you be comfortable. And you know, bondholders are long-term investors. That's one key thing. But there are limitations to your patience, and we're trying to test it. And from a financial standpoint, this is a grave issue.
Do you think we could get our fingers burnt at the end of all of this, in terms of the consequences to the financial system?
Listen, the consequences are unimaginable. And you know, we've had issues in this country, but this one really cuts me deep. And I weep and I'm pained by this current situation more so than any other situation that has hit the country so far, because when the integrity or the assurance that government gives you is being affected, then literally everything goes haywire. And from a financial standpoint, you know, America was there and they made some monumental changes because they just couldn't let it happen. And I think that, and I'm hoping that our finance ministry gets this message carefully, that it is really about the fact that government assurance. And from an insurance standpoint, when you assure somebody that I have a policy for you, we'll pay out this when this happens. When you renege on that, the consequences has to be dire.
The consequences.
And I think that, not to mince my words, somebody has to be held seriously accountable for.
Who has to be held responsible?
This, if it
the finance minister?
Well, I mean,
call a spade a spade.
As it stands, I think that it is troubling.
It is troubling.
And personally, I don't sleep with this issue. It's serious.
You don't sleep.
It's serious.
And I'll come back to you. There's a bit of an issue with your microphone, so we'll quickly.
Let me say
but
this.
what he was saying basically was that it's so dicey that he's losing sleep over this matter, and he's not alone. But I want to. We don't have enough time. We have a minute.
But let me say this.
Let
me say this.
Extremely.
Yeah, let me say this. If we had known that the domestic bondholders will be affected, if we had been told in the budget, the minority would not have approved the budget. We wouldn't have.
If you had known what?
Yes. If we had said so clearly in the budget that there will be a debt exchange program that will affect external creditors as well as domestic creditors, we would not have approved the budget.
You would not have approved the budget.
Because he told us that it's only external creditors who will be affected. And then he'll come back to Parliament to explain the terms. Only for us to approve the budget. Then hours later, he issued a statement and said that domestic bondholders will be affected.
Do you feel the finance minister has been dishonest?
He was deceitful to Parliament. He deceived us. Look, minority, if we had known that my anti-savings will be affected, wouldn't have supported this.
All right. So to wrap the conversation, your final comments, gentlemen. But I want your final comments to be focused. I'm going to box you into a corner. Earthquake in Turkey.
Yeah.
Our president reacts. And we all reacted. Christian Achu, among others. I mean, we've spoken about Christian, but other people are in there. Ghanaians, students, among others, affected.
Yeah, domestic workers.
But then, Idraman SHS dining hall collapses. The roof is torn off. 40 students. A lot of them are injured and all that. There's no talk about it. And we're wondering, what is going on? Far away Turkey. We're talking about it, commenting. Mr. President is reacting. In our own backyard. 30 seconds each, and it's a wrap.
Well, let me thank the media for bringing it to the limelight. You know, I'll commend you anytime you do that. But more importantly, I really think that, listen, the gravity of Turkey's issue by no way close to what happened to 40 students.
Are you downplaying what has happened there?
Listen. I said the gravity. And let's be very fair with our president. You know, this is an international issue. A player we all follow, you know, in terms of stardom. And you know, some issues, we all get car accidents, but if that Lumba gets a car accident tomorrow, you capture it in the news. So we have to be realistic.
God forbid, of course.
No, I'm just sorry. I mean, pardon my use of accident. Maybe I can use something else. But if he hits the lottery, tomorrow we'll talk about it. So let's be guided by the fact that, you know, there's a superstar, a Ghanaian superstar, a footballer we all follow.
Are you suggesting that if we hadn't had a Christian Achu maybe the president would not have reacted?
He may or may not, but generally I think it's expected of all presidents when another country is before by some tragic issue like this that we comment on it. And this is something that is making international waves. So the president has to. Now, let's be mindful of the fact that we have local leadership who have also commented and taken action and gone there. I had the municipal executive there to talk about it. So I really think that locally, once NADMO is working, all these agencies are working, we have something. There's a regional minister
Final
Yes,
who has
yes.
made a comment about
on that.
it.
Some 30 seconds.
Yes, I am sad by the happenings in the Juramine. It was a force majeure. From the story, the roof of the dino was ripped off in a thunderous rainstorm, leading to the collapse of the building on the student. I think they were running helter-skelter, but somehow some got trapped. And some they were rescued, some sustained injuries. But it's important that we bring attention to any form of disaster in our country as well. Just a couple of weeks ago, some children got drowned in
9 or 8?
Yes, about 8 children got drowned in Sydney. Was it in Sydney East or Sydney West? Very, very sad.
Yeah.
I suffered that in South Dine a lot. My people get drowned frequently on the lake when they are traveling between Germany and our farm plains. Sometimes they are caught up in a rainstorm. Sometimes the storm out of nowhere on the lake. And they are caught up. They don't have life jackets and all. So as a people, as a nation, we need to make funds available for purchases of some of these things. But in respect of the rainstorm, it's a force majeure. GES should go in and see how they can quickly rebuild the structure for the students. And NADMO should get in and see how the students are doing. They can be properly attended to, so their education is not...
What I can guarantee we will do is continue throwing the spotlight like we did with Ghana Schools of Shame, Pandai District,
I will urge the member of Parliament for the area to raise the matter by way of statement on the floor. Then we can contribute and see what attention can be brought to it.
Thank you so much for your time. Roxanne Nelson Dafiamakpo, Member of Parliament for South Dai. We also have Dr. Dixon Adomaku Kisi, Member of Parliament for Anya Soto, joining us to have this discourse. But up next, right after the break, we'll be talking further about major developments in our country. We'll be taking a look at the domestic debt exchange, among others, with a former Member of Parliament for Tamale Central. He is also a former Lands and Natural Resources Minister. Inusa Fuseni will be joining us on the show as we have breakfast with him on matters in the minority, the NDC, and other matters that are cropping up nationally. You're going to make my producer and director beat
15
me.
seconds. Good morning to Pekik Balik Pevetongo. And Degan, good morning. Mama Tomelo, good morning. Togo Atiplaja. And Togo Akudumpe, good morning.
Thank you so much, gentlemen.
Let me then also thank Kolebu Accident Center. They're handling one of my concerns very well.
Okay.
And I appreciate what they do for Ghana in terms of motorbike accidents and other injuries that people sustain during road traffic accidents. So thank you, Kolebu.
Thank you, gentlemen, for your salutations. Just stay with me. The news review on the AM show, which we had earlier, it's brought to you courtesy of Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. We're offering free prostate screening and free female fertility screening. I think all of us should be going there, prostate screening. The location is the Accra Spintex area opposite the Shell signboard, Kumasi Kronum Abuehia, behind the Angel Educational Complex in Takrade, Anaji Estate in Tema Community 22, in Techiman, Hansua, and Esiama in Nzema. You can reach us on 0244 867-068 or 0274-234-321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease and the end to the first leg of our big stories. But the second lap coming up. Do stay.